Hi, welcome to our show today. We are so grateful that you decided to join us again today. As you know, our show is Sacred Intelligence, and the aim of our show is to help you maximize your sacred intelligence. That is, tapping into the divine part of you so that you can make intelligent choices. I'm joined today by my co-host Susan Bainbridge, and we are welcoming back today Dr. Amy Cannatta, who was with us 2 weeks ago on the show. And last time she was here, she discussed the importance of physical health, and we began to look a little bit at how she merges fashion into helping people to understand how you look and feel impacts you physically. So we are delighted to have Amy back with us today. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I can't wait to see all the good things we're going to learn today about fashion and physical health. But, excuse me, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about this idea of being selfish. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the important part of being connected with the sacred, but it's also important that we're connected with the self. So I wanted to just spend a few minutes today before we get started. We talk about this concept of selfish, and what selfish actually means is taking time to spend time with yourself, nurturing, healing, caring for yourself. And so I want to start today's show by asking Amy and Susan a very important question, and that is, what have you done to take care of yourself lately? How have you nurtured yourself in some way?
You want to go first? I'll start. Well, one of the things that I've been working with this past week, in particular, in relationship to my business, has been, I started working with a business coach to help me merge my chiropractic world with my fashion world, because I started feeling very disjointed. No pun intended, but I started feeling a little disjointed. Like I was straddling two different worlds. So that was one of the things that I really needed to do for myself. I took the time, paid the money, and working with a business coach, and it's the best thing I've ever done for myself, actually, to this point.
So you invested in yourself.
I did.
That's really what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What about you, Susan?
Well, for me, I guess we talked a little bit last time about my personal faith orientation. So I think of that definitely as a weekly and actually constant way of taking care of myself. And you know, I guess I don't always think of it as selfish, but I do know that it's something that's important for me to keep me grounded and in touch with that sacred source. And so for at least an hour, you know, every week, I'm silent and just communing with myself, my sacred source. So I think that's one way. I'm also, you know, I think we kind of laughed about this before, but I'm in the process for the first time in my life of starting physical therapy because I have back issues that need attention, and so I'm finally paying attention to that, taking care of myself that way physically, working on balancing my health a little more carefully in terms of the things I put into my body and getting enough sleep. I'm always telling clients that, you know, what a huge difference getting enough sleep can make, or conversely, what a difference it can make if you're not getting enough sleep. So that's something that I'm very vocal about, because I think a lot of people don't know sort of the research about, you know, 6 hours of sleep a night versus 8 hours of sleep a night. And they've done studies with, you know, after 2 weeks, the people who have gotten 6 hours of sleep a night will still say that they feel fine. They feel like they're functioning at, you know, normal level. But when tested for things like reaction time and things like that, they actually respond similarly to people who have had no sleep for 24 hours. So just knowing that 6 hours of sleep a night is not enough, and yet many people do that every day, all the time, get 6 hours or less. So things like that, just little things.
So basically paying attention to your body and what you need, and then also thinking about where you want to go career-wise. And I have to tell you, for me, I am just excited because talking about sleep and resting, 2 weeks ago, nearly 3 weeks ago now, I resigned from my position as pastor of a church that I was pastoring. And the first weekend after I had resigned, I did nothing but, just enjoy my bed. And the kids were gone because it was Halloween and they spent the night with someone else. My husband was working, and it was just me and the dog and a good book. And it was wonderful, just rejuvenating. And what I also did, which was really important, and I'm thinking about Susan with this, I also had a really good deep massage, because that was my time with myself. And plus I know, and you can speak to this a lot, I'm sure, Amy, but our bodies really can just sort of tense up when we have a lot of stuff going on in our lives and a lot of things that we need to do. And I was in an accident a few years ago, and I have some soft tissue damage, so it creeps up on me every now and again, these aches and pains and all of that, but I think it's exacerbated by stress. And so I just had this wonderful massage and just spent time to myself, and I never ever feel guilty when I'm doing things like that, because it's so important, and I think it impacts us physically. And
it does. Yeah, I was speaking with a patient this week, and one of the things I was telling him is to help him understand this exact concept. I use the analogy that our bodies are like a sponge. We absorb energy, we absorb stress, and it's really important, to clean the sponge every once in a while. I mean,
wring it out.
Not to be gross, but it's true. You need to really clean that stuff out, do a whole cleansing process. And one of the things that I do is also, I get a massage once a month too. Yeah. And that's part of my cleansing process for the month. Just to de-stress, regroup physically, and it just makes a huge difference.
Because the massage also helps in terms of the toxins that are in your body as well, right?
Right.
And the place that I actually go to get my massages, there's a steam room there, and so you're really just like jelly when you come out. And it's just so nice because your mind is just blank. At least mine is. I try to make sure that I shut it down. But I wanted to just mention a couple of things that I think in terms of what we learn when we spend that time to ourselves and when we're selfish. And please feel free to jump in, either one of you, to add your points too. But I think that when we spend time with ourselves, it's an opportunity for us to really learn how to tap into that sacred part of us, because we're spending time with the divine, and we're spending time in silence, hopefully. And what I find is that you really learn what your heart's desires are. You're not learning what or thinking about what other people want you to do and to be. If you train yourself, you go into this sacred place, you spend time with yourself, and you say, what do I really want? What am I passionate about? I just did a workshop 2 nights ago, and it was a writing workshop, but one of the things I asked the women there was, what are you passionate about? Who are you really? And the only way that you know who you really are is to spend time with yourself. But we don't really enjoy doing that so much because we're so busy taking care of other people. But I also think it's an opportunity for us to rejuvenate when we spend time with ourselves. Otherwise, we end up in the same boat as the people that we're taking care of. And again, I know as therapists and also as a chiropractor, we probably tell our clients all the time how they need to take time for themselves, don't we? Because many of them take care of other people, and they'll say, well, I don't have time. You know, when we do retreats, women will say, oh, this is nice, but I don't have time to come to a retreat. And we'll say, but that's the whole point, that, you know, for you to spend time with yourself. So, you know, I don't know if the two of you have anything you can add to that.
I think, well, I was going to go back to something that you said earlier about your first free weekend and spending it with your dog and a good book. And I think those can be two of the most therapeutic things on earth. For me, I have a wonderful, well, we have 3 dogs actually, but one that is a real snuggler. And I was just saying the other day that I think, you know, he ought to be a therapy dog. I really, you know, because he's just so in tune with everybody's emotions in the household, and he knows he's drawn to whoever needs comfort or needs a little cheering up, whether he needs to be goofy with you or whether he just needs to lay next to you. And certainly reading has always been a therapeutic thing for me. I love learning. I love feeding my brain. So that's, not everybody loves reading, obviously, but for me, it is sort of giving myself a treat when I let myself take time to read and feed my intellect in that way as well.
But I think the other great thing too, when we're talking about reading and how it helps us as we're thinking about ourselves, I shared the book that I was reading with Susan. It was Sue Monk Kidd's book, The Intervention of Wings, and it's a story about the Grimke sisters who were involved with the women's suffrage, and they were involved with abolitionist movement. And what was so great about that was looking at these women and seeing what they had to overcome and the challenges that they had to overcome during the time period that they were in. And you think, wow, if they could do that, then I could do the things that I'm setting out to do. So when we spend time with ourselves, even when we're doing something pleasurable, it's also an opportunity for us to kind of think about our own calling and our own purpose, you know? So
I think about it as it's an empowerment movement that I can actually feel starting to happen right now with a lot of women that I work with. It's that I feel like the pendulum is swinging more towards that next shift in women getting into more leadership roles, more executive roles, more women entrepreneurs out there. It's all this stuff is shifting. And I can tell, I can feel it by the women that I talk to, the people that I'm around, and I think we're going to be going through this other transitional phase where we've got this empowerment happening, and it's starting to kind of simmer, where women are feeling like, I'm going to step into myself, my true self, my true calling. What am I here to do? What am I here to be? Who is the woman that I want to be? It's not so much about what we do in life, it's about who are we? What do we want to be?
And that's that spiritual piece, I think, too, calling us back to who we were originally created to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think also the idea, you know, there's that quote that says, life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And I think that speaks to the empowerment idea that we don't have to go looking. We can decide for ourselves what we want to be, what we want to do. And I think that what you're saying about more women being in leadership roles and entrepreneurial roles, it's certainly very true. And of course, there's, I think, a danger associated with that, because then we're expected to, or no, well, some society, I think, expects us, and we expect ourselves, even more so, to be superwomen, right? I mean, like, so, okay, now I own my own business, and I'm, you know, spending this many hours a day, not just working there, but building the business. I mean, we've had many talks about this, and yet you're still often expected to go home, take care of the kids, make dinner, do, you know, all the traditional female things.
Right.
But I think that that's where we have to claim our space, and that's where we have supportive partners, hopefully, at home. I am so absolutely blessed because I don't cook at all. I mean, my husband says that I prepare food. He hates when I say that I cook because he's a wonderful, wonderful cook, and so that's a portion that's off my plate, but there are those traditional things that you are expected to do, because oftentimes when the kids have things that they have to do, it's my schedule that is a little bit more flexible that I can do that with. But I think one of the other things that happens is when we claim our own and when we feel empowered, as you're saying, we're also a model to the younger generation, so that maybe they won't have to go through some of the things that we went through. My oldest daughter said to me, she went to church with me one Sunday, a few Sundays after I had written my letter of resignation to the church, and she was looking at me, you know, while I was there. I don't know what I was saying. Maybe I was already doing my sermon, but she said to me a little bit later, she says, "Mom, you know, I was thinking about something." She said, "You really, really love preaching, and I know that you love the church." She said, "But if you're going to resign so that you can expand, you know, your business and God is calling you to something else," she said, "Not for nothing, but you're kind of old. So I thought, if you can do it, I can do it." And so I had to get over the whole being old thing. Yeah. But I thought to myself, wow, that's what I want my daughter to know. I want her to know that, listen, honey, you can be and do anything that you want to do. You just have to be able to find a way, and I don't know if we can say balance, because it's never completely balanced, but find a way that you can accomplish what you're called to do, have the supportive people around you. And I think the other thing is about spending that time with ourselves. It also helps us to have a greater capacity to love and to do things for other people. Because when you don't spend that time with yourself and finding out who you are and resting and rejuvenating, you become irritable, angry, resentful, and all of those things. I mean, not to say that we don't have some days like that anyway, because when you're overwhelmed, but really, if you're just doing what other people want you to do and never being true to you, how happy can you be? And that, I'm sure that comes out in the body, the aches and pains.
It does. Resentment, it comes out like that. The other thing I was thinking as you were talking is something I heard actually today on a call, and the speaker said, "When are we going to stop asking the world for permission to be great?"
Yes.
I loved it, and it's just stuck with me all day. And I'm like, it's okay. You can give yourself permission to be awesome. And you can give yourself permission to ask for help. So to your point, yes, we are expected to be all these things, but at the same time, being vulnerable and asking for help is actually really powerful. And I want to make sure that the women out there, that's one of the messages that I'm really passionate about sharing, is that it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're vulnerable. Actually, there's a lot of power in that. And I think it's taken me a long time to learn that that's okay.
I think it's okay, you know, as you said, it doesn't mean that we're vulnerable. I think sometimes we need to be. Because when you look like you have it all together, people think you don't need help. You know, I will say, I've asked people sometimes, I'll say, "Do you pray for me?" And they said, "Yes, I pray for you," in a very general sort of way. And I said, "No, but do you pray like particular things for me?" They said, "Well, I think of you as the prayer and as the healer. You're the one who helps other people." And I said, "But that's why I need your prayers too. That's why I need support and help, because when you're taking on everybody else's stuff, you need to have a support system." So, you know, you're a therapist like I am, you're a chiropractor, you're taking on people's stuff. And I know that when you are working on people, I bet you when you're putting your hands on them, whatever they are dealing with, you can feel that. You can feel their energy, can't you?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I was actually just thinking about this yesterday, about the fact that when I was doing physical therapy, one of the things that my chiropractor said was that so her hand became very hot on my back. And she said, "Yeah, I think I drew quite a bit of heat out of there, but I don't think I got everything." And so I started thinking about it in terms of drawing out. You know, it's like the squeezing out the sponge, right?
Yeah.
but you're the sponge sucking up all this stuff from all of the people that you see.
Right.
And I guess in many ways so are we, not in such a physical sense.
Right.
But, and I was thinking to myself, what did they do to get rid of all that stuff they just took in from my body and their next patient's body? And, you know, I mean, like you're constantly sort of removing as much negativity and pain as you can from the people you're working with. How do you get rid of that negative energy? I mean, you said through massage, that was one thing.
That's one thing that I do for myself. The other thing that I do for myself is, and I'm just going to be honest and put it out there, and people can make their own, you know, decisions on what they want to do. But for me, what I need to really focus on is creating, I almost make this invisible sort of barrier. And I think of it like, I have all these analogies, I realize. But I love the movie The Incredibles. So have you both seen The Incredibles?
Yes, I love
so my favorite character in there is Violet, because she goes around in this violet little like bubble world. So that's sort of the world that I live in when I am doing chiropractic work or energy work with people, or any kind of, even, you know, I'll sit and just talk to patients sometimes about what they're going through. So I'm not a therapist, but sometimes I have to hear some things that they're going through. Or even my clients that I'm doing styling with, we talk about their insecurities. So that comes out from the sponge. So I sort of visualize myself like Violet. Like I have this little purple bubble that's around me that protects me. And so that I still have the ability to reach through the bubble and work on people, but that bubble protects me. And that's what I do as a day-to-day sort of coping mechanism, so that I don't take all that on. I used to in the past, when I first got into practice, I didn't have the bubble technique perfected, so I would come home physically and emotionally drained. And I got burned out. After about 3 years into practice, I was already burnt out. And so I hit this rock bottom, and I decided that I needed to practice differently in order to protect myself in the long run from continued burnout, because I didn't want that.
And if you burned out, you couldn't help the many other people that
exactly,
you,
exactly.
I actually think that that's a great idea. And, you know, I remember once I was on a plane, and I had 2 days of very intense training with a group of school teachers and educators on race. And so the subject matter itself was very intense. So 2 full days of this, and I get on this plane, and this woman, I kid you not, talked to me for 2 straight hours about her problems. And I'm just so nice that I didn't shut it down, and I listened. And at the end she said, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a psychologist." And she said, "Well, can you tell I go to therapy?" And I was thinking, how many therapists do you go to? Because she was so intense. But someone said to me, it's because you didn't close yourself off. Right. And that is a protective thing to do that, is to be able to close yourself off so you don't get, you know, all this negative energy. But it's often hard, because when we're seeing clients, I can think of couples that I've had who've come into my office, and you can feel all this negative energy and vibe, and it like right here. Yeah. You're not trying for it to come, but it's just there.
It's just there.
And when they're gone, you have to say, wait a minute. I have to do something to clear the air in here, and to just breathe and to release and
that's,
to go.
That's true certainly with, I think, clients who have anxiety disorders as well. You can feel, it's like this tangible feeling of anxiety, and you start, you do start feeling yourself getting anxious. And to be able to, to put up that bubble, I think that's a great thing.
And then also to utilize, you know, other people, because often, you know, we might go in and have a moment of where we're just releasing, you know, processing the situation. But that's why it's so important for us to have that selfish part of us, to be able to set boundaries with people and to be able to set limits. But I think the other part of why it's important for us to be selfish is because it allows us a time to examine ourselves, to allow us to figure out where we are in terms of our own self-worth, what's important to us, what will we allow people to do and not do to us. And a lot of times people don't want to spend time with themselves because they don't want to confront issues about themselves that they need to change. So I know as therapists, we're always asking people, I do, I'm pretty sure that you do, but I will ask people to spend time even just riding in your car without the radio on. Because you just sit in the silence. And I had someone who told me just the other day, she said, I never thought about that. I said, well, this is your assignment then. When you leave here to your next place, which was going to be about 20 minutes, I said, don't turn the radio on at all. Sit with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's so very important to do that. Because I think what it does is that it helps us to be connected with the sacred, for one. We can hear what the sacred might be saying to us, but it also allows us this free-flowing mind just to kind of think about what's at our own heart's desire. So I think it's really crucial that we spend that time with ourselves. So what I'd like to do, though, Dr. Cannatta, is to talk with you a little bit about I think how you came into your own in terms of this, I'm going to call it this selfish path, because I think it's a great thing, finding who you are. We talked a bit the last time about becoming a chiropractor because it's one of the things that you realized through an eye-opener when you turned 29, when your grandmother died, that you recalled when you were 13 that she had gone to a chiropractor, and it opened up something for you at 29. But long before 29, you were a fashionista.
I was.
You were much like into the whole, to fashion. So I'd like you, if you could, just to talk with us a little bit about how you discovered your passion for clothing, because no matter what aspect we're in life, I think it's great for us to look and be who we are authentically to ourselves. But also, sometimes some of us might need a little bit of help with that. You know, we might like to look good, but may not know what it is that we need to do. So talk to us about your journey and how you first discovered your passion.
Well, my journey started when I was 4.5 years old. And what happened at that time was my little brother was born. And my parents were really happy and excited because he was the first sort of male child in our family. There was 4 girls prior to me, and then my brother. And so they were really excited. And what happened was I just started feeling like the invisible child. And I'll use this term of feeling invisible because their attention went, I mean, as every new parent does, they focus their attention on the baby and sometimes forget that they have another child to take care of. So, and not that my parents forgot about me, but that's how I felt. I felt like my brother took priority and felt very invisible. And the only time I sort of felt like I got attention was when I needed to be disciplined. And my father was the primary disciplinarian in our house, and my mother was quick to point out when I had done something wrong. It's like, I'm going to tell your father. How many times have we all heard that? I'm going to tell your father, look out, you know, your father's going to be home. So one of the things that I did to sort of cope with feeling invisible was I started to play with clothes. And so clothes became what I would categorize like my therapy. Some people do art, some people write. Clothes became my therapy. And the thing that I realized through just my play of playing dress up was that I could go anywhere I wanted to be with clothes. I could take old clothes and a cowboy hat, and I could pretend like I was a cowboy in the West. I could take a pretty dress and wear my mom's high heels, and I was transformed into feeling like a princess. So I learned that early on, and I had fun with it, and I loved how it made me feel, because it made me feel like I was transformed. I used my imagination, and I could go places that to sort of escape my reality, I guess, that I was kind of going through at the time. So that's sort of my beginning path with clothes.
So
was more through play.
I want to just, it's really interesting to say that, to sort of escape your reality, and not that we encourage people to go off into la la land and not deal with reality, but I think that there are times that we do need to look at something different than our problems. Because if you had just focused on your problems only, you wouldn't have this great passion for clothing that you have now. And so you began to be very creative, and I think that's great, because what happens is when we spend all of our time focusing only on our problems, we create more and more and more negative energy and vibes, and we learn to respond in a way that it just keeps exacerbating the problems that we have. So I think that's really cool. At 4.5, she already figured it out. That I can do this and have fun with it. So that's really great. So tell us a little bit more about, as you know, that's 4.5, but a lot has happened between now and then and 4.5. So tell our viewers how you use fashion to sort of help transform you, and maybe you can speak to some things that have happened in your life where you found that really how you looked made all the difference in the world with how you felt, even from an emotional standpoint as well.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm really very passionate about. And yes, a lot of time has passed between the time I was 4 and now. Throughout my life, I've had some challenging times, and one of the times in particular that I'll talk about a little bit is when I started chiropractic school. I was in a very abusive marriage. Physically, emotionally abusive. It got a little more physical as time went on. My second semester, I should say, into chiropractic school, I was actually, I remember the date, it was May 21st, 2002. The night before I had to take my last final exam for my first year of chiropractic school. Like, phew, I've got 1 year under my belt. The night before I was to take my two final exams for the year, my then husband, my ex-husband, he was cleaning some guns that he had, and he threatened me with one of them. And he threatened to kill me if I left, because we were having problems. And I went to bed that night thinking, I have to do something, but I have to take my tests, so what am I going to do? I decided at that moment that if I did not go to school and take my test, that he had won the battle. So I decided at that moment in time that I was gonna, as my grandmother would say, pull myself up by my bootstraps, gather all the strength that I had, and all the focus and all the concentration that I could, and go to school the next day, take my exams. And what I did prior to that was gather all the stuff that I could possibly fit into my car, with around my kids' car seats. And I went to school. I picked up my daughters, or I went on my way to school, picked up my daughters at daycare, went to school. I told the security what was happening, and I had some very gracious friends that watched my daughters while I took my exams. And I was just about ready to be done with my exams, and there's police sirens that start to go off. Well, what had happened was, while one of my friends was watching my daughters, they noticed that my ex-husband was on campus, dressed up in camouflage with a backpack and a hat and sunglasses. And so one of my friends noticed that it was him, and they called the Bridgeport police. So here I am finishing up my test, and there are police sirens going on, and there's cop cars starting now to envelop the building that I was in, and my daughters are there. And I finish my test, I get my daughters, And we stayed in the building until it was safe. The police came, they chased my ex-husband around the campus, and once that was secure and everything was calm, I was free and clear to kind of go home. And at that point, I took a big deep breath, because I was like, okay, I got through my exams, I got through this major scene, now I can fall apart. So through that process of all this turmoil that was going on in my life, and it didn't stop there, that was the beginning, really, because the next 1.5 to 2 years was constantly looking over my back. Things happened. But the one constant that I always had to hang on to was what I put on my body. I had control over that. It was the one thing that I had control over in my life, was what I put on my body and how that made me feel. And that's something that I have tapped into my whole life, starting from 4 years old. It's just sort of carried me through. And I didn't always have a lot of money to invest in a big wardrobe budget. But I always knew that how clothes made me feel empowered. They made me feel pretty. They made me feel like I could conquer the world. I could take on anything. And so that's sort of how my journey with clothes has sort of transpired and helped me through some really difficult times.
You know, one of the things that I appreciate you saying, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, because it's a very personal story to share, and so thank you for that. I want to also say, particularly for other people, our viewers who may be going through the same sort of situation, is that it is imperative for you to make a decision to get out of your situations as well. But you may take a different path than Dr. Cannatta took. But the important thing is to find your sources of support. I do want to say that, because there are people who can support you, but just to know that you have a choice. Because even when we stay in those types of relationships, that's a choice as well. But feel empowered, because what I like about what you said is that I made a decision to do what was going to be best for me in the long run. Mm-hmm. Because obviously you felt that that night, I can make it through this situation, but I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to take care of myself, because if I get the degree, mm-hmm. then I have a career to mm-hmm. go on and do what I need to do. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, if I fall back on this now, where will it put me? And so I think you took a moment, it sounds like, to think beyond this one thing that was happening right now, to say I've got to think long term and not react simply emotionally. But I want to say, for anyone who is going through this, though, safety is the most important thing. Right. So whatever it is that you need to do, that's what you have to do. Everybody's story is very different, mm-hmm. but it's about being in tune with yourself. And I think the other thing that I loved that you said was that I thought about what my grandmother said. And I think often when we're finding ourselves, when we're learning who we are, we call on those people from our past or otherwise who have been supportive to us. And I am a big advocate of my ancestors, calling on them to help me in my time of need, because that's where we draw our strength from. And it sounds like you did in that moment. And you just said, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And that's what being sure of yourself is all about. Mm-hmm. I can do this.
Right. And I want to, you know, one of the things that happens in people that don't know me or don't know my story, they see me now as all put together. Like, she's a doctor and she's, you know, she dresses really nicely and she's got it all put together. That wasn't always the case. You know, there was this example that I just, the story that I just told, I did not have it all together then. And like you said, I got help. Yeah. I allowed myself to be vulnerable and ask for help, get the help that I needed. I had to make a plan before I left, mm-hmm. A safety plan. Yes. Things didn't really go according to plan, as the story that I just shared kind of told. Things went a little differently than I had planned, but it all worked out, and I'm here safe today because of it. But I haven't always had that all together, and I want to really make sure that the viewers out there know that wherever you are in your life, it's okay, but you can start tomorrow changing who it is you want to be in life.
But I think one of the other things that's really important, and I know that Susan can speak to this a bit too, is this idea about what we do have control over. Because often when we are dealing with people in therapy, people will say, I have no control over anything, but you do. You just said I had control over how I looked.
Right.
Some people might not even think about that.
You have control over how you react
to
situations too.
That's right.
You have control over your own emotions, and allowing someone that power over you. You know, when people say, oh, well, he made me feel this way, or she made me feel this way, it's like, no, you have control over how you react and how you feel.
And that's exactly right. And I have to tell you, even as a therapist, I remember once I was talking with my niece, who's also a psychologist, and I said something about feeling a particular way after someone said something to me. And she said, well, that's your choice. And I said, what? You know, she said, that's your choice. And that's a hard thing to hear, because the truth of the matter is, I don't have to allow someone else's issues to become my own issues. When I know people are responding in a certain way, it's really not even about me. It's really about them and their stuff, and I don't have to own that.
Right.
So it's really great, you know, to hear you say that. But as we're going back to fashion, because I do want you to talk about this, you know, you said I had control over the fashion. So there might be people out there who are saying, yes, but I can't afford to buy clothing. I can't afford to do this or to do that. And you just said I didn't have a lot of money. So talk to us a little bit about, because whether you have money or not, you know, it's good to spend wisely and to repurpose clothes and all of those things. So do you have any tips that you could give to all of us, you know, about repurposing clothes?
Sure, I would love to, actually. This is another grandma-ism, I should say, a grandma thing. She would always tell me, Amy, a bar of soap doesn't cost a lot of money. So you can always be clean and well put together, no matter what you have at your disposal. So I sort of grew up with that mentality, is like, always be clean. You know, you don't always have to look like you have the, $500 jacket on, but you can always be clean and well kept and brush your hair. So it was like those simple things, like a bar of Ivory soap goes a long way, she would tell me. But one of the things that I got very good at was shopping sort of off season. That would be one tip that I would tell you. And like this time of year, well, this is a little bit past, but the very, very end of the summer, like just after back to school, there's still summer, clothes on clearance racks. And you can go there and you can find, I've gone to Marshalls and TJ Maxx and gotten shirts for $2, $3, $5, t-shirts, all different things. So if you can shop the off season and kind of hang on to them to the next season, if it's something that's sort of a classic style, or a plain white t-shirt, it's not going to go out of style to the next summer. You're good. But one of the things I also did, as far as repurposing clothes, I mean, one of the simplest things is to cut off your jeans, to make shorts. Or the other thing that I used to do, because I'm an amateur seamstress, is take dresses that I maybe grew out of or whatever, and I would cut them off and make a skirt out of it. I mean, really simple things to do. But consignment store shopping, I've done that. I still do that. I still do that, because who doesn't love a bargain of things? So those are the types of things that you just shop really wisely.
And mix and match things.
Mix and match,
too,
build on things season after season. Black pants never go out of style, everybody. Black pants are a wardrobe must. So you buy those in the summertime when they're marked way down from the fall and winter before,
Yep.
and you save them. Now the challenge, because I can hear people saying, well, what if I gain weight? Well, we're not going to factor that in, because we're just going to say you're going to stay healthy. You're going to stay the same weight till the next year when you can wear them. But black pants are really, 3 seasons anyway.
All right, so I have to interrupt for a second about the whole what if I gain weight. So some people might consider it maybe a little pack radish, but I am someone who my weight fluctuates a great deal.
Yep.
Based on medications that I'm on, especially. And so I have bins on shelves around the top of my walk-in closet. Luckily I have a big closet where I will put, whatever I'm not currently fitting into, and I will mark the size. So I have, like lots of boxes.
Yeah.
I can't. Every time I, gain weight or lose weight, I can't afford to buy a new wardrobe. So I keep everything and organize it according to size, so that if I'm losing weight and now suddenly I went from a 14 to a 12, then I pull out the box that says 12, and I've got, a new wardrobe right there. So
that's a great idea, and I'm glad you said that, because I think that's an important tip for the viewers too. Is that it really is okay to have more than one size in your closet.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about also, how they say if you haven't worn it in a year, and notwithstanding whether you're gaining or losing weight, but let's just say it's a suit, and sometimes maybe they look dated, sometimes not. I tend to wear my clothes forever, but if you haven't worn it in a year, they'll say, well, get rid of it. What do you think about that?
I think it depends on what it is. I think if it's really a trendier item, I would say if you haven't worn it in a year, go ahead and toss it. If it's a suit, I would say no, don't toss it. I mean, there's things in my own personal closet that I may not have worn this past year, but they're classic enough pieces. Maybe I didn't wear them because it's not because they're not out of style. I just wasn't in the mood to wear them.
Right.
Or sometimes our summers are really short, and I don't know why, I buy summer clothes. So I have a lot more summer clothes than winter clothes, and sometimes I don't wear them all. Just because there's not enough warm time to wear them.
I think one of the other things that's crucial too when you're talking about fashion is patience, and I do not have patience when I'm in the store. I will look through something, like I can go in TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and if it's just not jumping off the rack at me, but my friend on the other hand, who was also an image consultant to me, she can go in and she can find something absolutely wonderful for like $25. And because she'll look through the same rack that I just looked through, and she'll pull it out and say, well, what about this? Well, I didn't even see it, because I don't have the patience for it. But one of the things I hope that you could do for us just in a few minutes would be to talk about how important it is for our psyche to look good, and how important it is, not that we have to dress for other people, but people do form impressions of you based on how you look, because I think how you dress, you carry yourself differently depending on how you dress. So can you talk a bit just about that?
Well, exactly what you said, which is how you look reflects how you feel about yourself on the inside, and feeling good about yourself makes you carry yourself differently. You stand taller, your clothes look different. We talked about this a little bit last time about looking good and feeling good, and that's that's part of the process. And I guess one of the things that I want to make sure that the viewers know is that they need to be authentic in their own style. So my style might not be someone else's style. And that's one of the things that I work with my fashion clients and my transformation clients is we talk about what is your style? Because it's not about me. It's about you. What makes you feel good? What do you like? What are you comfortable with? And then it's my job to maybe push you out of the box just a little bit. Let's try something a little different.
Because the truth of the matter is, underneath that wallflower, for instance, might be this person who's waiting to blossom in a different way. But it's so funny, Susan kind of laughed.
I'm sorry, I giggled in the middle of you.
That's what I'm talking about, because we just had this conversation on the way over here about being authentically who we are and not dressing based on what other people think.
Right.
You know, it's fine to have this image or whatever, but it really has to be about you and your personality. But our time is really run short again, and I feel like there's so much more that we could have said. So Amy, we'll have to have you on the show again. But I do want to just point out a few things that I think is really important. I always like to leave us with some golden rules, and I want to list the ones that I've prepared here, but of course if there are others, please feel free to jump in. I just want to say, in terms of just the golden rules for really learning how to be selfish and have that time that you are spending with yourself. First, if we looked at the sacred, take that moment to learn how to center down, to have that quiet space, that voice that speaks to you to say who you are and who you were created to be. Be in tune with the gentle urgings of the sacred, because often what happens is that the sacred will let you know and will let your body know when you need to quiet down, when you need to be still, because sometimes we have physical problems when we don't quiet down the way we need to. And then examine whether you're really living your purpose, and that's all about spending time with the sacred to do that. In terms of just really the selfish part of the relationship, practice saying no to others, because often we say yes to everyone else and not to ourselves. Make a list of the things that you really enjoy doing, and examine whether you're actually spending time doing that. So if you say, I enjoy massages, are you giving yourself a massage once a month? Reflect on your attitudes, your beliefs, and your behaviors, and figure out, do your current attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors reflect who you want to be? And if they don't, make the necessary changes. And then know who you are and don't respond to who other folks think you should be. Really quickly, I think about the show The Color Purple, and there's a part in there where Mr. says to Celie, you're black, you're ugly, you're never going to be anything. And she says to him, I may be black, I may be ugly, and I may be poor, but I'm still here. She was claiming who she was and who she wanted to be. No one else can define who you are. And then in terms of the shared relationships, explore the reasons why you don't spend time with yourself and you spend time helping other folks more than yourself. And set firm boundaries with your time. Be clear of your expectations of other folks and their behavior, and then find an accountability partner that you can commit to sharing your time and space with, to say, please hold me accountable for spending time to myself. That's our show for today. I want to ask Dr. Cannatta, how can folks get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me on my website. My website is acstylesme.com. Click on Contact Us and send me an email. I'm happy to talk to you.
Great. She can tell us all about her styles and also the chiropractic part as well. You can connect with her there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Please contact Sacred Intelligence at www.sacredintelligence.com, and please tell your friends all about our show and subscribe to us on YouTube. Have a great day.